Welcome back to Real Takes, where we are all movie love all the time. I'm Stott, and tonight is the first night of Pisces season. We've crossed over into the time of Pisces, but it's still February, it's still Black History Month, so we have one more film to celebrate in relation to Black History Month, which does not mean we won't be celebrating Black film artists the rest of the year. We celebrate Black film artists all year long, but we have a special focus for February and Black History Month. And, the Pisces thing is interesting because in a way, I don't think of Pisces as being a sign that would lend itself to like film directors in particular. Pisces is a water sign. It's the fish. They like to flow their own way. Here are some words that are used to describe Pisces: intuitive, dreamy, artistic. So yes, sympathetic, sensitive, compassionate, perceptive. But you gotta be tough to be a film director. So sometimes I think of Pisces as wanting to kind of be in their own world a little bit. So thinking of them, running a film set with 60 people or something doesn't seem quite right. And when you look at some of the more famous Piscean film directors, they definitely put their own very unique aesthetic on film. So Buñuel is a Pisces. Bertolucci is a Pisces, Cronenberg, Spike Lee, Jordan Peele, Robert Altman is a Pisces, Kelly Reichardt, Jonathan Demme. So these are directors that have a very unique way into the art of storytelling in film, right? The film that we're celebrating tonight, interestingly enough, is not directed by a Pisces. It's directed by a Cancer, and it's a story that the director and the star created together, and the star is a Scorpio, and they're both water signs. So it was like a big water confluence that culminated in what I'm calling a very Pisces film. This film is intuitive, it's dreamy, it's artistic, it's compassionate, it's perceptive, it's tender. And this film is The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which came out in 2019 and was directed by Joe Talbot. And the story was conceived by Joe Talbot and his childhood friend, Jimmy Fales. And it's largely based on Jimmy Fales' own personal story. And it's a movie about gentrification in San Francisco, and with a particular focus on how gentrification definitely, whitewashes communities, sort of wipes away not only socioeconomic diversity, but racial and cultural diversity as well. So Jimmy Fales is a third generation San Franciscan, and Joe Talbot, the director, is a fifth generation San Franciscan. And they met, I guess they first met in grade school, but they became really good friends in high school. And they have both said that in some ways, The Last Black Man in San Francisco is a story about a man who's in love with a house. And Jimmy Fales' grandfather had a house that at some point the family lost, and Jimmy Fales had a deep sense of connection to this house and a desire to reclaim the house, and it was something he would talk to Joe Talbot about. And ultimately they decided that this story, along with other elements of his story, could make a movie. And I love this movie just for itself, and we'll talk about how beautiful and special it is in a minute. But I also love the backstory of this movie. These are two artists who had never made a major motion picture. Okay, so I got it wrong in my first take, so I'm just coming back in. So they had been talking about this story and making a movie of it for years, I think. And then they did a Kickstarter, which did well, but didn't get them enough money to make a feature film. So they made a sort of concept short about what they wanted to do. And that process, the Kickstarter and the concept short, started getting them a lot of support in their local community, local producers. And then Danny Glover, who is a longtime San Franciscan, started supporting them and ultimately acts in the film as well. Barry Jenkins was living in San Francisco at the time and would give them script notes, that sort of thing. But they were able to take this concept trailer to Sundance. And that is where they got connected with Plan B Entertainment, who ultimately greenlit the film and made it possible for them to make a major motion film. But it was a 5-year process of building and rewriting and working and making connections and getting rejected and then ultimately being able to make the film. So a lot of love and determination, really hard work, and tenacity went into getting this film made. So the backstory is really heartwarming, and they were very committed to, showing parts of San Francisco in the film that we don't always see in San Francisco films, and also using a lot of local characters. So there are local street performers in the film. There are sort of local heroes in the film. There's a moment where, a sort of walking tour guide is taking people around, and apparently the person playing the tour guide is kind of a local, recognized historian of the people, and they got him in the film. So there's just a lot of love for San Francisco that runs really deep in the film. But all of this centers around Jimmy's story, and Jimmy Fales, who co-wrote this story to some extent, very much based on his life, plays himself in the movie and stars in the film. And then Jonathan Majors plays his best friend Montgomery. And it's about his connection to this house that his grandfather built, and kind of what we have to do, like what we tell ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves, the myths we live with in our mind to live with wounds when we're pulled away from things we love in our life. And it's an incredibly heartfelt story. And I've talked about this before on this channel, but as someone who's a songwriter myself and, committed to thinking about and working for, social justice, political change in this country, I think a lot about how to make art that is that says something about political issues, but in a creative, personal way. And this film does it so beautifully. And they kind of bypass the rage. Like if I were going to make this movie, it would be like gentrification, bad, yuck, 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 and they really drop into the heartbreak of watching your community be broken apart by forces beyond your control, losing your sense of home, and how that can literally break you. And they stay with that, and they stay with this very personal story of this one person and this one house. And by doing that, it cuts so deep emotionally and conveys so much about what each individual lived person's experiences of being forced out of their home, wherever that is. And it also cuts really deep, to an even more universal level about loss and how we survive loss and how we move on or how we can't move on. It's a deeply affecting story. And part of the reason it's such a deeply affecting story is that it's beautifully made, and it has this kind of dreamlike quality. And in one interview, Jimmy Fales said, "San Francisco is such a nostalgic city. Everyone from here is so prideful about the things that happened here and what made it so unique. And nostalgia is like a dream. You're dreaming about the past." And he felt like that energy sort of made it into the film. From the very first shot of the movie, we are taken into this particular world that has a sort of dreamlike, poetic, lyrical quality. And it's interesting because there isn't a lot of back and forth in time. There are no flashbacks in the story. It's a story that unfolds in a linear fashion that has a beginning, middle, and end. But within that, the way it's shot and the way it takes time out for connection and reflection creates its own universe and sense of community that is really unique and really special and deeply moved me. So cinematographer Adam Newport Barra obviously had a lot to do with that, and Joe Talbot has talked about the fact that even though he'd been making short films, he hadn't made a feature film, and as the director he felt like he learned a lot from Adam Newport Barra. I mean, he feels like he and Jimmy Fales like had this vision, and they had the determination and the talent to create it and get it to the point where it could be made. But then in the process of making it, they both learned a lot from the professionals around them. Jonathan Majors is a trained actor, and he came in and he and Jimmy Fales lived together for a part of the time before and during making the film. And just apparently Jonathan Majors was really generous with Jimmy Fales about acting and working together. So yeah, there was, this film is about losing community and losing home. And in the process of making the film, I'm getting teary, they like created a new community and a new sense of home, clearly, from how it came together. And in all their interviews, they talk a lot about the community they built around the making of this film, or they don't even give themselves credit for building it. They sort of talk about the people who came in to support them and how that became family, really, which is beautiful. And then I also just want to say, another way that the world is so beautifully and specifically created is through the composer Emile Masseri, who brings this, there's a regal, majestic energy to the film, like this pure love and ache that is represented in the texture of the film takes on this this spiritual and majestic quality. And definitely some of that is a credit to the composer Emile Masseri, who has gone on to compose for Congigliere and Minari as well, actually. So this film is special. I know I use a lot of positive adjectives to describe all these films. It's the hazard, as I've said before, of having a movie channel about films I love. I end up using beautiful and unique and courageous and special a lot. This film is really special, and it did really well for a film of its type. It won, Joe Talbot won Best Director at Sundance Film Festival, and it actually won a new special award for creative collaboration at the Sundance Film Festival, and it played at festivals around the world, and had a theatrical release and won a bunch of other awards at places. But it's a very particular kind of experience, and so it didn't hit the front page of any newspapers. Maybe it did in San Francisco, I don't know. But I'm just really passionate about it, and I want people to see it. So please watch The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I promise you will be moved. And let me know what you think about it. Comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next Wednesday. Thanks for watching Real Takes. Hit the subscribe button below so the algorithms will tell you when new episodes are out. And if you want to support Real Takes, please visit my Patreon page, where you can join at any tier from $2 to $100 per thing I make. The $15 tier is specifically about supporting Real Takes, and you'll get behind the scenes information and be thanked in future videos. See you next Wednesday.